If you ever needed a definition of a messed up area, well, this is on screen. So we need to fix it with what we do today. We are going to fix this area of the Pygme Hippo. In the first bit, we are now going to talk about the general layout and what has been changed in this area. And then after a little sponsored message, we will jump right into step by step how I changed this area to create something really beautiful like that. However, how we got there is very interesting, so stick with me, but first of all, a little message and then we get going. Special thanks to our sponsor of today's video and the sponsor of the channel. Instant Gaming is a wonderful platform on which you can get your favorite games to a great value. Here you've got 24/7 support, you've got over 10,000 games at your hand, and you can find them very simple via a search bar, just like our Planet games over here. Or if you fancy, have a look at Cities, for example. Everything is here, including all the DLCs you wish to have. So special thanks again to Instant Gaming. Link is in the description if you want to grab a game. Please click there and have fun. Alright, so in today's video, we are going to go step by step through the changes. And I'm going to actually talk you through in detail what my thought process behind that was. So, as I said at the beginning, it's been a hot mess, and you've seen I've quickly done a bit of a rearrangement of items, which I unfortunately lost due to a crash, but more about that later. So the whole idea was that this entire space over here felt super incoherent. So we had this huge entrance area where the hippo habitat is, with the overpath and everything like that, and then you go to the Pygme Hippo, which was surrounded by this in-game brick wall, which was like on a semi-height, I don't know, but we do have this beautiful gazebo on the side, or like actually in the middle, but as I said, on the side, it just didn't shine. So two things were absolutely important in my mind. So the first one is to create a proper viewing to the Pygme Hippos, because that is something that we didn't have so far, and I really wanted to create something for the Pygme Hippos, that is something really, really, really important. And the second thing I wanted to do is, obviously, I wanted to have the gazebo in a place that it really shines, because it's been such a good addition to the park back in the day from you guys in the community. So I wanted to have it really look rather great. And the only other thing I wanted to do is to really get in with a lot more of a city vibe, and therefore I needed to change a couple of the fences over here, get in a bit more metal, so we can also make the metal look a bit more weathered in the future. So these kind of things are rather important. And the more I went into it, the more I noticed one thing. These in-game brick walls are absolutely horrendous. They don't look good at all. Don't ask me why. I cannot really specify why. Maybe it's because they're too clean, maybe they are too red, maybe they're too bricky, I don't know. Just something about these things feel off, and the same goes mostly for the in-game brick set. But we are lucky enough to have so many new brick pieces with all the DLCs that came, whether it's been the Twilight DLC and the European DLC, and we have a lot of pieces that we can now utilize. And so what I wanted to do is really to get in with all those new pieces and make this whole thing feel a lot more like a city zoo. Now, the advantage of making a city zoo is that you can work mostly with the same things. It's a lot of stone, it's a lot of concrete, a lot of stone, a lot of asphalt, and a lot of trees, and that makes the whole thing very simple, because once you have the grip of it, you can go on with the same theme in an entire area, because that's just like what city zoos make so special, or like so nostalgic, I should say. It's not really special. I do actually prefer modern day zoos, but with the challenge of making this a proper like 90s German city zoo, as this was basically the idea about this entire project back in the day, I needed to just slap in a lot more concrete. You will not see too many decals in here today, but this is for a certain reason, because I want to make a project out of that. More about that later, because now we get into the next part of our build. After I fixed the habitat, I went on to create a underground viewing, because at the moment we only had the above ground viewing, and we had this pool viewing area in the back, which honestly was kind of pointless, because the way I created it, you didn't really have a good look into the pool. You actually had a better look into the pool from the other side. So there was no real reason for the people to go here in the first place. And so I decided to change this, and you can see I already done a bit of work here to ensure that you don't have all the fiddling around with me until I figured out how to make the underground view, because that was a mess. But it looks very clean, very easy. People can go down the stairs, stairs and then just have a look inside. In regards to making sure there's a ramp for wheelchair access, for example, or stuff like that, unfortunately, if we keep it real, this has not been too much of a thought process in the past so much. So it's rather normal to find these spaces without access, and so this is why I kept it this way. Unfortunately, it has, you know, it is a part of the realism aspect. Then I lost, unfortunately, one of the things I did in one of my recordings was lost due to a crash, so I had to fix the pool, or the mud bath, I should say, and then in general I kind of made things look a bit more weathered and way more integrated over. You can also see I enlarged the pool a tiny bit because they are lacking a little bit of underground like swimmable water area, which I still don't get. They have so much area to swim in. I just disabled this feature from the sandbox mode because I was like, you know what, this is rather unrealistic and city zoos are not that insanely big anyways, and so I was like, you know what. The last thing I did, and this is something I really highly recommend as well, is I added a reasonable amount of detailing to the habitat. I took some of the aquatic rocks that would be realistically in here, not too many, so that it just doesn't look super empty. We still need to do some more decals, but more about decals in the back, in the past. And then I added some mulch pieces here and there, and also grass, a whole bunch of grass, because grass is rather important to make it look way more realistic. But that done, we are in the next part of our build. I figured the viewing is still not perfect. We still had that one wall that looks absolutely awful. So I was like, you know, we need another viewing opportunity. And as I redid the mud bath in the previous step, I figured, you know what, that looks kind of cool now, and wouldn't it be cool for the kids especially to see the Pygme hippos do a little mud bathing action there. And so I was like, you know, let's put a typical zoo viewing opportunity in, taking some limestone and some glass pieces. Very simple and straightforward, but I think it looks really, really dope. I also added a little bit of a broken glass here with a couple of little decals. That is just like a little feature that I wanted to add. And on that note, while I do a lot of little gardening here, which I'm going to explain a bit more in a bit what my intention behind that was, the decals will be utilized in a later episode of the FixerUpper, where we specifically look into making things weathered. I felt like this could be a cool kind of inspirational video. Making things look weathered is a art on its own in this game with the given pieces, and the decals themselves, they are super versatile if you know how, and I didn't want to just slap that into the video here and then just go on. I think it makes sense to make a proper video about how to utilize the decals specifically for making things look realistically weathered. See, the way you do imperfections is the way you make it look more realistic, because realism isn't perfection. A minute after you've built something, there will be the first weathering effect going on. And if it's raining the day you're building it, it's already during the building process that things are going to weather. So nothing is perfect at the get-go. And this is mostly the problem that all of the builds have once you do them in the game, because they will, by the nature of the textures, look perfect, simply because it's a super nice and clean texture. Granted, they have done a stellar job over time adding textures that are way, way, way better in that, because they are somewhat weathered in their own already, so they're not super perfect, but specifically the base game items, which some of them we have to use simply because most of them are very good for city zoos and classical zoo design. They are not really that weathered. Specifically, and that is interesting, when you look at the roofing here, for example, of the gazebo, which is already, the fact it's turquoise is already basically because the material has weathered over decades. This is the idea about it. So it should actually have a bit more weathering effect on it, which again we'll do in the future. Now, the second part of this this step in the video today was focusing on making this area a lot more coherent and nice. Therefore, I opened up the gazebo to one side. I did have some connections in, as you can tell, but they were pretty pointless. So I ended up making sure that this gazebo is opened at least to another side, and so people can walk through it. But I also wanted to give it a proper meaning now. As we have the restaurant now on the other side, it didn't really make any sense to keep this with 3 shops in here. So I decided to to create like a coffee area. So that is basically where people can eat their own brought food. You know, if you have like stuff on your own and you bring it with you, you can eat it somewhere in here. You potentially wouldn't be granted access to the restaurant area if you have your own food. Sometimes they do this, so you know, that in order to make you buy their stuff, but you still want to have some resting areas where you can eat your own stuff, and some picnic tables are way more nice than the normal park benches. And so I decided to opt for this gazebo as this opportunity, simply because we want to create a destination for people when the kids are running around the plaza and doing some stuff in here. That might be the reason, and put a lot of greenery around. When it comes to the greenery and the bushes and stuff, I decided to go for a lot more overgrown vibe. I used a lot of the fern pieces, for example, and the bracken to create a very overgrown look, because a city zoo potentially is older and maybe not super well maintained anymore, because financial reasons and stuff may make them focus on certain areas more than others. And so I decided to go for a lot of these things to make it overgrown, especially with the grass pieces, and so it's not all super tidy anymore. And that kind of story continues throughout the entire area, and as you can see, always cleaning up a couple of areas here, putting a statue in order to clean up this little bit. So just making sure everything looks a lot more coherent, fixing some of the ugly areas where the dirt is. You know, one simple trick is just to use some of these pieces. Make sure to avoid Z-fighting of textures by raising or lowering one of the pieces, and then you're good to go. Putting in some lanterns and lampposts, make sure to make it look a bit more finished. And then the whole area already had a very different feel to it. This was like a blank spot over here I decided to not to pay too much attention to. So that is a very quick fix up. I made sure that we use some of the rocks to you know, make the backside look a bit more nice. And then I just slapped in a lot of grass pieces. And when you do that, you can also make sure that you do overlap with the passing here and there, because you never have like a clean edge anyways. We will do certain things with decals at the end, but that is rather nice anyways. So now we jump over into the real-time part, as the time lapse already gone and you have a little zoom in on the gazebo. But now, hey, let's have a look how this looks actually in game. Alright, as promised, we are here in the real-time part, and as you can tell from what you see, I have already done a couple of other things in the meantime. So the reason why I didn't do that all in the speed build is rather simple. I wanted to show you why I did certain things in real time to give it a bit of a nicer touch. So this restaurant building over here is not finished. It's super simple, you know, just a couple of pieces slapped together. We need a proper door and stuff. So this area still will receive some more love, because I will need to put something in here. So we're gonna have one more habitat that is featured in here. This will be done with the entire safari. So we will do something African inspired over here. So I'm thinking about meerkats or something going down the hill would be fun, but something like that will be happening. And then I'm gonna finish up this whole area. We'll connect this entire backstage part here. I'm not going to do too much, you know, it's not going to be like super crazy. I want to maintain that, you know, accessible for you guys. But you can see I focused a lot more on making this like proper city zoo vibe, a lot more plaza, a lot more concrete over here. Like the change is actually dramatic, to be honest. It doesn't look like, and that's a good one, because it looks like as if it has always been here, but the change is dramatic. I have to say there are a couple of things I still need to do. I still have no idea what to do with this entrance. At the moment, my idea is to even open that up even more, take away a bit from the habitat, and open the space just a tiny bit more to keep like maybe like a little pre-plaza or something like that, because it feels a bit cramped over here, which is unnecessary. We have enough land space for the hippos, so it's not like they have too little space. So that is something I really want to do, making this whole feel a lot more coherent, I guess, and also make these planters over here feel a bit more reasonable. And then the rest, let me just jump into the explore mode so you can see a lot more of what I've done over here. So you can see the building itself looks a lot better. Like really, you can tell how much this area just gained with the changes. Like, you know, there's no comparison whatsoever. Now this building finally shines, and I really love it. So if you've watched you know, Oak Street City Zoo, you know that this is not my building. I totally forgot who that was, so I will have to look that up eventually. And I'm, you know, at the end of the series, I'm going to give proper credit to everyone who built these things. But this one is absolutely gorgeous. Windows and stuff, everything built by hand, and I gave it a lot more love this time around. So if you go in here, you've got a couple of seating tables if you want want, you can grab some little snacks or maybe a coffee over here and sit down if it's too hot or if it's rainy, because obviously we are in Europe, so that means rain is possible. We have a little statue over here, which is mainly to avoid this little thing on the ground. Still need to put down some barriers. We have our restaurant area over here where people can have another sit down seating area, and then we've got the Pygme Hippo on this side, which I haven't really changed too much about the layout because I still like it, but I have changed a couple of things. So over here, for example, oh, you look at that, this looks so much better now. You've got the Pygme Hippo do a little bit of a swim in the foreground here, change the overall look and feel of the mud bath. And if we go around, you can see we have a completely new viewing opportunity over here. Looks super city zoo vibe, you know, with these very simple glass pieces in this very classic limestone wall, and then, you know, kids can look through, adults can look something if they do take a mud bath. I think it's a very good positioning. And then once you go further, to give them some more shelter, there are some more higher walls to prevent a bit from the stress, have some education. There's still a lot of mess lying around over here on the right hand side with the proper hippos, with these glass walls changed. Not sure why there is nothing in. Still have to do a bit of work over here, and this entire back area isn't done fully. But what is done is the interior of this wonderful pool gallery, which is now an actual pool gallery. Back in the day, we didn't even have something like underground viewing. I mean, I could have done that, but I did enough already in the zoo. But now it makes a lot of sense, as we do have a lot more props for that. And now you can go down and have a little look if they are moving below water. I gotta say that specifically this pool over here could also work super well for like otters or something. I think this is something I may actually steal and do that again in this zoo. Maybe they've chosen to use the same design twice. I really like this, how this turned out with the trees and stuff in here, and you can even go up and have a little look into the habitat if you fancy doing so, with the gazebo in the background. I think it looks really cool. And if we just move around here to the other side, you can see I did some easy gardening over here, a bit more overgrown, as this isn't city zoos, you know, they're already older, so it's even harder to maintain over time. I think it's really good. You've got this little separated seating area where you can sit down and have a little snack or even like a proper meal. Need to do a little bit of an access here to toilets, at least implied toilets, and then, or maybe actually we're gonna put some proper toilets in the back here. There's still some space, so I might actually put some restrooms in there. But yeah, so that's that. Let's just quickly zoom out to show you what's going on in the next episode. We will have a live stream this weekend, but it's not going to be this project over here, I guess. Maybe it is, but I want to start something new. So maybe that's going to be... Excuse me? Huh, they have a good time in the open wild, I guess. How the heck is the giraffe actually escaping? How is that even possible? Maybe somewhere over here. Okay, I don't care for now. I think I saw the last episode too, and I was as confused as now. But well, let's leave them for the moment over there. But yeah, as you can tell, this entire area now gained so much in comparison to before. Really in love with it. I think it's proper zoo, city zoo vibe going on here, and this is what we've been opting for. But now it is up to you in order to make this series run, guys, and fly. And I've received so much good feedback in the last one. Please flood the comments with your ideas. What do you think needs to be in a proper city zoo? Maybe, you know, give me some inspo from your local city zoo. I mean, almost every zoo fan has a go-to city zoo, or actually one that has, you know, has been there in the past, who knows. Please let me know, send me photos, details and stuff like that. I really want to make this feel as best as I can as a city zoo, but I want to keep it as accessible as possible, so not go too crazy in detail, because I feel like this can also be overwhelming for people at times. So this is why I want to keep this rather simple, just like the restaurant over here, and see that we can still go in with a good vibe. And that's actually everything I want to ask you. And as always, if you liked the video, give it a like, even though sometimes I forget it myself. So please consider doing so to tell the algorithm you like what you see, or you actually have seen, because this is the end of the video. So thank you so much, and I talk to you in the next one. Until then, have a good time. Goodbye.